The women holding it down.
Yeah.
Where's Brian? Where is Brian?
Not working, apparently. Oh,
Yeah!
Always starting without me.
Oh, man.
You know what I was just pulling? A Janelle slash Myrna. Janelle slash Myrna.
Myrna, you about to call her out?
I love calling out Myrna.
Right.
She's not here yet?
I gotta work, guys. I don't know about these two.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I'm late.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly Hope.
I was working.
Oh my God.
We're actually going to record a bonus episode of our podcast today. So I had to get a bunch of materials for our bonus episodes. But you don't want to miss a whole lot of discussion today because it's our follow-up Friday here on Brian, Overtime. Anything we talked about on Overtime this week or during a live show that you want to revisit and discuss and you're thinking about how the week went Friday, we've got our thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Put your comments here. And don't forget, coming up in less than an hour now, 55 minutes, 10 o'clock, brand new Brian Janelle podcast episode. And it's one of my favorites we've done.
One word title.
Kanye.
He was working. Yeah, it's called Kanye. That's it.
Wasn't that creative?
Amazing.
You all over there like coming up with some deep thing. I'm like, just call it Kanye. But there's audio you've never heard on the air. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Hannah's comments. You got to go check it out. Download that at 10 o'clock today. So
You guys, I'm hungry.
who's showing up? Oh, Myrna. Whoops, she was
That's
there.
right. That's right. Tell them, Myrna.
Myrna's going to hurt me.
She got here before you got here.
You see how much talk I am when you're behind this? And I'm here? See? I'm all
Thank you,
talk.
Sheila. Sheila says, sure, Brian, sure. You always giving Janelle a hard time for being late. Thank you.
I was working, not making coffee.
Hi, Callie. Hi, Jeffrey. I'm like tired.
Are you?
Nobody cares.
So-
that's like a little kid complaining. I'm working. Talking about I'm tired. So we're gonna have so we talked like for 2/3 of Follow Up Friday about Kanye.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It still struck a chord. And when we stopped talking about it, there were still probably 4 or 5 calls waiting to get on. What is it about that story that's caused so much attention? I mean, family, I don't know if you've seen this, but our Overtime from Monday passed 9,000 views this morning.
26 shares.
I mean, that's a lot of views of some Facebook Live thing. So there's something, what is it about this that people are so interested in?
I think the first thing with our video was the question we asked. It got a reaction. But I think the shares and the amount of views was Kanye. I mean, the album just came out. It's his name. I think it's a buzz right now. You don't think?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It truly is part
But
of
I
pop
think-
culture.
Yeah, for us, our conversation, the big thing was, should we judge? Should we question? Discernment eventually landed there, but I think even the question of, is that a question that we should ask of anybody?
I was
Like,
surprised by that.
How do we handle a new believer?
I didn't expect I didn't expect so many people to be really mad. I mean, if I'm going to measure levels of anger based on the number of exclamation points or the power of words, calling a question stupid implies angry. Someone
yeah.
did that. Multiple exclamation points, like sitting your finger on it and going implies angry. People were mad that we even asked the question.
Yeah.
What should we as church do with Kanye,
Kanye
West?
West.
Do you think you weren't here that day?
Mm-mm.
Wrong question. Should we have told it was a bad move? You tell me, right?
Yeah, but I like that question.
I mean, maybe we could have asked it better.
Maybe explain it. I think the question's fine. Maybe kind of give background in terms of what we mean by it. Because I think with him having such a big platform, it's valid to think, okay, what do we do? Where does he fit? How do we handle it? The caller reminded us, this is a man that said that he is God to the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's valid. He is a person, but he's also a product, an icon, whatever you want to call it. So you have to ask yourself, what do we do with this? You see what I'm saying?
It's discernment.
It's more than like one of the callers texted. It's not a neighbor. It's an icon that's now saying, I am a Christian, and using that for his platform.
And to be blunt, I don't think it's helpful, and this is going to sound defensive, and I don't want it to sound defensive, but I don't think it's helpful to rip on someone for asking a question. like, how do we promote healthy discussion? If somebody says, hey, what do you think about, or how do we, and you go, wow, dumb question. What are you thinking, you idiot?
Yeah.
And no one went that far, but that was the tone of it. How is that productive?
And
in any
maybe
way?
you guys can help us.
And that sounded really defensive. Sorry. I don't
Because somebody said when they called, well, it's a public discussion, and if Kanye or a new believer is listening, what would they feel? But I agree with never shunning questions. Jesus used a lot of questions. Not asking, promote, like there's danger there. You know?
There's a lot of danger there.
Yeah, with just like shunning questions, that's not good. It doesn't get you good places in a lot of areas. So we talked about discernment, and we talked about being cautious as a church. You were going to say something.
Well, I was actually thinking about the parallel to some difficult conversations we've had about racism, right? Emotionally charged, for good reason people could get angry. And I think one of the problems, you correct me if I'm wrong, you can push back on this obviously, but a lot of people who are white, for example, are afraid to ask a question to you as a black woman because they're afraid that they're going to sound racist and you're going to get mad at them for the question.
Right.
And so that discussion requires me to think carefully, be soft and gentle, and you to extend grace if something sounds horrible, to not shut down the discussion,
Right.
but to find a way to correct,
Right.
but do so in a way that's not going to embarrass somebody.
That's
right?
true.
Do you agree
Right.
with that?
And for you not to have the freedom to ask makes unity, makes relationship difficult. Because
Yes.
then there's still that space, that gap. You know, there's distance. I talked about it when I went to Chicago for the Me Too movement panel discussion on the Moody Men's Conference. Being the kind of woman, now you can't do this with everybody, but being the kind of woman where a man in the workplace, for example, can go up to me and say, yo, I just said this to so-and-so, is that okay? You know, that's, we should encourage questions, because that's how you grow, that's how you promote transparency. And you don't dismiss it by just saying don't ask. It doesn't mean the question isn't there. It's there. And so now we got a bunch of people in the church wondering but not feeling safe enough to say, hey, what do we do with this?
And then
How
you
should I
stunt growth.
handle this?
Like you stunt
stunt
growth.
Exactly.
Well said, Janelle.
Kat says God is using Kanye West for his glory. That is all. Lauren, yeah.
Hey, Lauren.
Wow, you're not even excited.
No, that's my Lauren wave.
Oh, cool.
She caught me doing that once, and now I do it all the time when I see her. Hey.
Myrna says, I cursed God before I had my... Oh, wait, because she
You
said
gotta back
something
up.
before. Myrna says, I'm just glad my conversion and sanctification walk isn't lived out on social media and TV. These folks are acting like they came to Jesus and were perfect. I think it's sad that we would treat a new believer in this way. We are to rejoice with angels and pray for them, just as we would anyone else.
I agree with you on that.
And Jennifer, love Jennifer. She's a homeschooler, by the way. I just had to say that. Homeschool mom. Brian, true. Your job is to lead a discussion. Something so prevalent in the media needs to be discussed within the church. I'm sure you have something to say about
Well, no, thank you, Jennifer. But I want to be sure I acknowledge, too, that I don't always ask good questions. Like if you were here for meetings off the air when our station manager comes in, there's been plenty of times where he's said, you guys asked the wrong question. It didn't go the way you wanted because of that. Or
Right.
it would have been better had you asked this question.
Right.
Or if you rephrased the question that way. I know that's true. And that's one of the challenges of the job we have. Is that
Yeah.
I know going into it, it's probably not ever going to be the perfect question.
Right.
And so when pushback comes, I've got to be ready to just take it because, I mean, some people were right. There was one guy who called in and said, maybe the word we was just a lot. It sounded us versus them. Point taken.
Right.
I don't know what to say other than say point taken. Yeah.
Jeffrey says, there have been so many times you guys have misspoken, owned it, and fixed it. Cameron, I love them type of questions, but don't ask a question and defend because they make you unteachable.
I know what you're saying. It's like a lot of people ask questions, a leading question, because they want you to agree with their answer.
Yeah.
And I've had that problem before, Cameron. When we ask questions, we have to truly be willing to hear an answer that doesn't fit with our perceived response.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where real discussion and love and growth can come from.
A lot of the times we try to model discussions that we should have as Christians and that we're hoping you're continuing at home. Don't you think that's a valid question to have? Like, we should be doing this with our friends, with our kids.
Yeah.
Or like as they walk around talking about, oh yeah, Jesus came, this is awesome, Kanye's a Christian. Is it valid with our children to sit and kind of talk through what we did this morning?
I think it is, but I want to do it with Myrna's passion for the lost and for celebrating salvation.
Yeah.
And that's where, the challenge for us too is that you might start listening right now. But we've been talking for, I don't know how many minutes now. I'd have to look to find that out.
Yeah.
But you may have missed something we said. So I have to remind myself as a radio professional, I've got to keep repeating key points. And it could have been that earlier this week I didn't do that. But yes, we got to talk about that with our kids. Definitely. About what discernment is.
Yeah.
It has its place. It's clear in Scripture that's the case. And we need mature believers in positions of leadership and understand people are still growing at different phases. But I want to have the Myrna look, I was a mess.
Oh yeah.
Haven't celebrated when I got saved. A lot of people didn't believe it. Same with Kanye. Welcome to the family. There needs to be a open arms. We love you. Praise God, you're in the family of Jesus.
Right.
But I think once we establish that, we can have those discussions.
Right.
So that looks cold and callous.
Right. Mike says, we only question a public figure more when they say they became a Christian because of the huge number of instances in our society of political correct statements made that are only designed to benefit the one saying them. We should take them for their word until they show the real reason for their statement, if it's different than what they said originally.
Yeah.
And Myrna said, amen.
She said amen to me, I'm sure.
No.
Thanks, Myrna. I knew you agree with me on this, Myrna.
And the thing is, though, somebody said, well, would you celebrate if it was Bill Gates? I could be wrong, and we talked about we're sinners. I still stumble, so if anybody was looking at me, it would be an issue. But if it was like, let's say Steve Jobs more than Bill Gates, because Steve Jobs has done some stuff when he was alive. If he came out and said he was a Christian, I think it's different to Kanye, because he would say, I'm a Christian, and then go back to Apple and do his Apple thing. Kanye saying, I'm a Christian, and now he's doing worship music and throwing out scripture. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like the middle of Steve Jobs and your pastor. You're like kind of putting your hands into, you're a worship leader almost. People are worshiping with you.
It is a unique situation.
So a church could easily turn on his CD. So, and what I'm saying is, you can't walk into a solid church, talk about, I just accepted Jesus last week, can I lead your worship team? I hope that's not happening in churches. And that's why I think it's a little bit different than just a little, I don't know.
But see, if I want to go there spicy though, I wondered if there was something behind that question about Bill Gates. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there a difference between, I'm just going to be blunt here, a black man who's a hip-hop artist professing Christ and a successful white businessman?
Absolutely.
As in, could there be behind that question saying, are we just asking questions because he's black and a hip-hop artist?
Yeah. And Lecrae hinted at some of that. You know, not even the black part. The hip-hop, kind of that area of music and how it's a good thing. And but the thing is, though, there have been several instances of us being reminded of things Kanye have said, and just to be fair, I think it's more than his color. People are questioning because there's a history of things.
Yeah, and he's been confronted with that.
Whitney Houston, Whitney Houston came from the church, and there were things in, and one of her last interviews with Oprah I loved, and the way she talked about Jesus. This is after
Whitney?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I wanted some of that. And she was remembering her years in the church before her stardom.
And her mother's a gospel artist.
Yes, and like she was talking about the Holy Spirit. Like she was, but what I'm saying is I could see back in the day people questioned some of her stuff because of the journey and the stuff she was going through, and people questioned like, should we play CeCe Winans in church versus Whitney Houston? You know, so I don't think it's a color thing. I think Kanye's been through stuff, and he said some stuff, including I am God. You know, so,
yeah.
I don't think it's just a race thing, but I can see why from the outside, if you don't know Kanye, why somebody would say, are you doing that because he's black?
Would you have cautiously approached Steve Jobs if he had a conversion experience like that? Or is the hip hop a separate thing?
I think because of Kanye's past, that's what makes me question Kanye more than a Steve Jobs. Because I don't know what Steve Jobs was just a regular business guy and very all about business and success. Do you see what I'm saying? There's been things more than, give me another black artist. It's just Kanye has done stuff that's like, what is wrong with this dude? And I know some of it has been his struggle with his mom passing. Do you see the difference I'm trying to...
No, I do see it. And I actually, as you're saying that, I'm thinking there may be a difference in the type of influence a Steve Jobs or Bill Gates has versus a Kanye West. So let's just say Bill Gates because he's still alive.
Yeah, let's take Bill Gates, yeah.
He's an influencer, but of a much different type. Yeah. He's not a pop culture icon.
Yeah.
He's a computer genius who has a product people get.
Right.
And so there's this space between you and him. It's his product. There really isn't a space between us and Kanye. He is an artist who's a pop culture artist who his job essentially is a cultural commentator in the sphere of pop culture influence. And so when you're consuming his product, it's his art that are his ideas.
Yeah.
So there is a level at which there's this buffer between us and this. You see how I think it's the type of art that ups the ante, for lack of a better term.
And remember when he did the whole Bush thing for Katrina? The things, or the grabbing the mic from, what's her name?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. It's stuff that to me at the time seemed like to get attention. So he's the kind of artist with the past that would make me at first glance be like, all right, is this one of your times now where you're just trying to be like, okay, here I am, I'm all out there. He has that kind of history.
Yeah.
So the point of that part of the conversation is just to say, I don't want to jump to, it's because he's black. No, Kanye is a special kind of person that's done stuff. Kat says, I agree. We do not know what really happens to people. There's always going to be questions. When I came to Jesus, all I wanted to do was help people feel the way I did, and people were offended. I was pushy because I was excited. We ask questions because we want to know, but sometimes we do not like the answer.
True.
Yeah. Jennifer says, so great he's worshiping, but right, Paul went for 3 years to be with God before becoming a leader in the church. Let's welcome and support, but to throw him into a place of leadership may be too soon.
Yep, I agree.
And you said he's not necessarily asking for that.
No, he's not.
But worship music is we just got to be careful now. I've heard other people question others.
We got people who write to us about one word or line in a song saying, how dare you play that on Moody Radio? It's theologically incorrect.
Yeah.
So I think it has to go both ways.
Yeah. Cameron, color will always play a part. Anything with an opinion attached to it or bias representative attached to it. Change the game.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not that it doesn't, that his color doesn't impact people's response. It's just that you don't think it's the primary influencer.
I don't think so. Myrna says, I've done stuff, you've done stuff. Look at the testimony to the power of God to transform us through his son and the power of the Holy Spirit. This should be making us shout. Let God deal with the other stuff.
And I think if you go listen to our podcast, episode comes out now in 35 minutes. It's all about Kanye, and I think it might make you do just that, what Myrna's saying.
Right.
When you hear, we have his words that we've never aired, tons of them. We've got a re-airing of our discussion, plus some listener calls. There was one guy out of Youngstown who was praising God for the whole thing. Great stuff. You gotta go listen to it.
And when we started the show, I know I started saying, I've been a Christian 20 years, and if you were to sit and look at me, there's all kinds of stuff that will make you question, are you really a Christian? So we know we have stuff. I'm just saying, we're trying to see the people that are looking at him and questioning why they are questioning. It's not necessarily race. I think it's more complicated. you know, why people are being all like, because even that question you said in that airplane, where the guy was like, you know, a lot of people ain't gonna believe what you said. Would he have said that to somebody else? Would he have said that to Bill Gates? There's a reason he's
No.
saying that to Kanye, and I don't think it's race. I don't think that's the primary.
He said he was
reason.
acting crazy and calling himself God.
Yes, and he's been tripping. You know, that's what society's thinking, and that's why they're looking at him like, are you serious, Kanye? That's what we're saying. We don't necessarily agree. We got issues, but I don't think race is a primary factor here. Mike says he needs to be mentored and grow, but there's an enthusiasm when you first get saved that is unmatched as we mature.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is definitely in that stage. It's super cool to hear him. You guys have to hear the podcast. To hear some of the interviews, wow.
Like, we sat down after it was produced. Our station manager put in so much time into this thing. He's such a good producer of audio.
Yeah.
That we hadn't heard Kanye's words yet until yesterday. I mean, we'd read a lot of the words, but
Yeah.
there's something about hearing him say it
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great episode. I'm on it, but
Yes.
you gotta
Even when
check
that
it out.
guy there's a video going around where a guy's interviewing him, and when he asks him the question, he like pauses, and like you said, it's very like calm. It's very different to the person he was before.
His
There was
disposition,
his disposition. They were interviewing Kim Kardashian on The View a few weeks ago, and when they were asking her about him, even the way she responded and the words she used, you can tell there's a transformation in the family. The way she looks at him and talks about him, not looks at him physically, but the way she was talking about him on the interview. It's just super exciting, and it's refreshing as a Christian to see that in somebody else. Lenore says, we will never know the true content of a person's heart. It is only God to know. We can only examine his fruit over time.
Yeah.
Sheila says, genuine question, why does everything seem to go to a race issue?
Sheila, we can get to that one. That's probably a can of worms we're not going to open today, per se. It's a good question,
Yeah.
and I think it's worth discussing. I just don't know that we got time to cover that one today. So, thanks for that. And in fact, with that in mind, we actually got to go, because we got to record a bonus episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
We had somebody get saved live on the air yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, I was tearing up driving home. It was incredible. And so we're gonna release it as a bonus episode of our podcast. You here being a part of Overtime have that special information. Just get subscribed to our podcast wherever you get your podcast, or go to brianandjanelle.org. We don't know exactly when we're going to release it, but Lord willing, the production will be done within the next week, and we'll get that out as quick as possible.
Thank you for coming, and thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Sheila, for your questions, and Lenore, Mike, Myrna, thank you for joining us. Callie says she wants a special hand wave, by the way. She said that earlier.
I'll work on that, Kelly. For now, see you, Lauren,
Bye.
and everybody.